Okay, hello. It took me a couple minutes to get this set up, but now we're ready to go. Um, my name is Nick. This is if you don't already know, which probably you already do. Um, I have this setup that I made so that I could read books to kids, and you can see part of it right here. I've got an old I've got an old cell phone here, and I'm using it as basically a document camera. But I figured there's other stuff that I could do with it, and I might as well do some of that. So, as you probably know, from whatever I'm guessing I make the title of this video, model trains used to be a hobby of mine back when I was a bit younger. Just a second, I'm going to mute the audio coming from this laptop because it is having issues. Okay. So anyway, I recently picked up. Oh, not this again. Come on. If that's going to be a problem. See, this is what I get for improvising a solution for something like this, when the obvious, simple way to do this is just to buy a cheap camera and use it as a camera instead of using sketchy third-party apps and stuff like this with a phone that is past its prime. Anyway, model trains, that's what I was talking about. So I'd like to, play with them and run them around the tracks. But one of the things that I liked best about them was building stuff with them. And back when I was, doing this more often, when I was younger and I had more free time, there were this brand of kits. So it's this one, Athearn. They made some really simple kits. They go together really easy. It's like 2 screws, slip in a couple plastic parts, and that's it. And they looked really good too. They were pretty inexpensive. They looked really good for how much you paid for them, and can't really complain about that. So I actually have a whole bunch of them. I am dubious about whether or not this is going to work, but let's go for it anyway. Okay. So anyway, the point is I recently picked this up on eBay, of course, and I kind of wanted to walk through the process of building these so I could share what I like about it and so that you could see it. So one of the big things is that this company, they're still in business, but they're not making these kits anymore. And I think that that's a real shame, personally, because I really like them. Like I said, they're easy to build. They look really good for how little effort you put into them and how little money you put into them. And you could build up a really nice looking train relatively inexpensively, and you could feel a pretty good sense of accomplishment with what you build. And I guess there's some other manufacturers that make similar ones, like Accurail still has kits. I don't like theirs quite as much. I don't like the couplers that come with them, and there's some other things, but I'll talk about those as I go through them. So anyway, let's talk about this one. So first of all, I'm going to show you this end, and I think that this camera is the best way to do that. Yep, so this is a 5-pack of Santa Fe hopper cars. Let's see, so these are AAR 50-ton hopper cars, and they're in a 5-pack, and at this point I don't actually know whether they're all the same running number or anything, but we'll see that as we start building them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build one of them all on its own, and then depending on how much time that takes, I'll either skip to the end and show you all 5 of them when they're done later, or I will assembly line the remaining 4. So let's get switched over to the other camera and hope that it still works. Okay, so far so good. Okay. So yeah, another thing that I like about these is how few tools you really need. So let's open it up. All right, there's the top, and here's the inside. We've got the instructions, and not a whole lot to the instructions, just like there's not a whole lot to building them. Hold on, I got a second light over here that sometimes works. Yeah, that might look a little bit better. So you could see that the main body is cast in one piece. There's 2 metal weights that go in that, and that's really good. A brake wheel that you apply separately. Sorry. 2 trucks that get held in with screws, and those screws hold everything in together. You've got some underframe in a separately cast piece, a small amount of brake gear, a coupler, and they're showing one of the really old kinds of couplers there, and then this coupler cover, which is a little metal piece that snaps in over the top. So I've actually already opened it up, and I know that those old couplers are not what we have in here already, which is a good thing. It wouldn't really work very well with anything else that I've got in that case. So let's take a look at them. Whoa, okay. There we go. All right. If I do this more than once or twice, I think that I'll just lay down some lines on here that tell me where the field of the camera is. I remember seeing that for document cameras back when I was in college, and it worked pretty well. Okay, so we can see some of the detail here. It's got lots of nice little rivets on it. So I see this one is 180500, and I'm going to take another one from the other end, and that is 180874. So those are different numbers, and yeah, GA54 versus GA62. I'm assuming that those are both like identifiers for specific cars. Some people, maybe they care a lot about that, like they don't want to have 5 cars in a row that are all the same number. Personally, I don't care because I don't look that closely, but it is a nice little thing. You know, they give you a pack of 5 cars, and each one is unique. The painting is really simple because in real life, the paint on these was, you know, pretty simple. They're freight cars. They're just meant to haul things. Hopper cars in specific were meant to hold things like coal or sand or gravel or anything else that could be carried that way. And these ones, because they weren't covered, you wouldn't put in anything that you don't want to get wet. So like nothing to make concrete, no grain or anything like that. I think that I'm going to put like sand or coal loads in here because I like the idea of having a little sand train because I live in an area that has a lot of sand, even if I don't like sand because it's coarse and never mind. But there are also a number of manufacturers that make coal loads that you just fit on top, and they have various grades of coal, and I think it's really interesting, a nice little upgrade that you could give to them. Anyway, I was talking about the detail. There's you could see the little rivets are molded in, and it's really good, like really good considering this is all one piece. And here at the end we could see where the brake wheel would go. You could actually see through it, like you could see my finger through there. And we've got the car number marked on there again. We've got a ladder here again. Yeah, so that brings me to another point. So we have these are called grab irons, I'm pretty sure, right here, because they are made of iron and you grab them, I guess. It looks like a little ladder. They are just molded in. They're not separately fitted pieces. In a more expensive or more realistic car, they would be little plastic or little brass pieces that got fitted in there separately, and then you have to glue them in if you were building it as a kit. But obviously, you're kind of limited with what you could do in a car of this design because you can't have them sticking too far this way, or else they'll be sticking out into the load where the load should be, and you don't want that. Anyway, I think that they still look pretty good considering that they're molded in. And the one criticism that I might have about these is you could see these injection marks right here, so I'm pretty sure that's where they inject the plastic. And you can see those little circles there. Otherwise, they look really nice. You can see some really small little details, like right there. You could even see the doors. Isn't that great? Anyway, I'm just going on and on. I'm sure that there's some nostalgia involved in how much I like these because I've built, probably about a dozen of them already in different, not in like packs like this, just one here and there. And like I said, that was one of the things that I liked about them when I was younger was I could go down to the hobby shop a couple blocks away from my parents' house, and I could just pick one up, come home and build it, and I've got a brand new car to run around the railroad. Anyway, I said that I would build one, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this one, 180500, and I'm going to take an underframe, and then I'm going to set the rest of the box aside, but I'm going to take most of the details out. So let's take a look at some of these other things. So we've got the weights here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull out 2 weights, because that's how many you put in. And yeah, these weights are another thing that's not, hold on. I'm not used to talking this much on or off camera. These weights are one of the things that are a little bit less realistic. I'm not a super huge fan of them because they fit in here, and from the side, even from the side you could tell. From above, you don't really see them. From the side, you could see that they're shining a little bit, and if you get any angle where you could see below them, you could see them. So if you're serious about something like that, what I would recommend is getting some paint in this color or in a close enough color, and then go ahead and paint the weights probably before you fit them in. I'm not going to do that today because I don't have time for that. I'm already wasting enough of your time to the 5 or so people who I expect are watching at this point. Anyway, so this is the details, and I'm just going to pour the whole thing out. Yeah, you could see that. Okay, so let's see here. This is the brake set. You'll notice that it contains, so in the instructions, where did I put those instructions? So we've got 4 separate pieces that fit in. We've got the brake wheel and then the 3 pieces of the brake set. This has 5 things on here. The wheel is not one of them, but we do have this little, this chimney piece. And what Athearn did was they used this same brake set for basically everything that they sold. And you can see that there's only 3 of the pieces here that go on this car. These 2 would go on to different types of models. I know that this chimney goes on their caboose models. I honestly don't know what this one is. Maybe someday I'll come across another one of their kits. So this set of 5, by the way, I got it on eBay. Not for as good a price as if I would have gotten it, 20 years ago when they were still open, when they were still making these kits, but I was still happy with the deal that I got on them. But if I come across another one that uses this piece at any point, I would be very interested to learn that. And if anybody watching this does happen to know what this piece is used for, go ahead and leave me a comment, I guess. Anyway, I'm wasting a lot of your time here. So I'm going to take this one because it's already had this fall off of it. And then I'm going to set the others. Here's what I'll do. I'll take the lid of the box and I'm going to set it off screen. And the parts that I'm not using are going to go in there. And there's a lot of them, right? Okay. So then the next thing are the trucks. Now these are not, obviously these are not the best trucks that I've ever seen. The truck bodies themselves are made of this shiny plastic, unrealistically shiny, of course. I'll have to do something about that in the future. It's easy enough to give them a coat of some rusty colored paint, and then, or even just spray them with a matte clear coat, and they'll look a lot better. I'm not a super huge fan of these wheels either. They've got a metal axle, which is great, and it also means that this, the bearing where they spin has a nice needlepoint metal to plastic, which works really good. It rolls really well in my experience, but the wheels themselves are plastic, and they don't sound as good going down the track as the metal ones. I know that that's a really shallow thing, but I really like the sound of the metal wheels. So if I want to make a cheap upgrade, or a simple upgrade to these in the future, I'll probably replace them with metal wheel sets from KD or Walthers. I have a bunch of them already. I just need to find the tool that you use to gouge out these pockets a little bit bigger for them, because the metal ones that I have are the needle points on their axles are just a little bit longer, so they don't fit in so nicely unless you make the pockets a little bit deeper. Anyway, the metal wheels also are a little bit heavier, and that helps with, well, having the cars up to a certain weight is actually really good for performance. They get really wobbly, or they come off too easy going around curves if they don't have enough weight. But these have these big solid weights, so the overall weight of the car isn't going to be that bad. So I'm not going to complain about that. So I'm going to take 2 of these, and I'm going to set them over here with the kit that I'm building. And I'm going to take the rest, and I'm going to put them in that box. If I thought about this beforehand, I would probably have a few small boxes over here so I could sort these parts out. So I don't need that, or that, or that, because I've already got one. Yeah, what I am doing is I'm putting them in different corners of the box for all the good that'll do. Okay. Here's the brake wheel. Not that bad. I do see a little bit of flashing on it. Let me bring it up really close so you could see it better. Yeah, I barely know what I'm doing with this, so if there's anything that you want to see in better detail, let me know. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this one. I'm going to sand it just a little bit. Okay, that's better. These brake wheels would also look a little bit better if painted, I think, but I'm not going to worry about that today. They are also my most commonly lost piece, so I guess I'm going to be careful with them. And these kits, by the way, they do not need glue. You don't need glue to put them together. Putting on the brake wheel and stuff like that, it may be helpful to use glue, but it's really not needed. All you need is a screwdriver. And speaking of screws, these are the screws. There are only 2 of them needed. They're flathead, which is not great. I think newer versions of the kits, they used Phillips head instead. Personally, I like Phillips heads a lot better because it's a lot easier to get the right angle on them and screw them in right. But, you know, once they're together, it doesn't make that big a difference. So I'm going to pick up the rest of these, and I do have a separate spot to put them. Okay, what else are we left with? We're left with the couplers and the coupler covers. So, let's talk about these couplers. I believe they're called McHenry couplers, and they are completely made out of plastic. So they're cheap. Oh no, these are easy mate couplers. So these are the ones that they got from Bachmann. I don't know if you could see it, but right on the shank there, it says easy. The camera probably can't focus on it. I'm doing the best I can with that. Maybe you could, if anybody could zoom in on that and see it better. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I knew what I was doing a little bit better. I'm also sorry that I keep apologizing. You're probably tired of hearing it. So anyway, I'm just going to take 2 of these. And these are because they're made of plastic, they're lightweight, of course. They're less durable and less strong than the more common, well, the more standard KD number 5 coupler, but they will be compatible with it, and that's the main thing. So I do have replacement metal couplers that I could use for that, but I will not be using them today. I will be using the ones that came with the kits, and I will replace them if needed. Well, more like when needed, right? Fortunately, they're one of the easier parts to replace. And then finally, the coupler box, or the coupler cover. You need 2 of those. Okay. That should be everything. Right. So, Yeah. So, um, I mentioned that there's some things that I don't like so much about the AccuRail kits as compared to these. One of them is that they do need glue for some parts, but another one of them is that their trucks are completely made of plastic, the axles and everything. Also, their couplers come unassembled. They come in like 3 different pieces that you have to put together, and I never use them. I'm sure that they're good once they're assembled, but I don't have time for that. I always just replace them with KDs or whatever else I happen to have handy. So, I don't even need to look at the instructions for this. I know that there's only one tool that I need. You saw that I used a sanding block already, but I didn't need to do that. I'm going to use a screwdriver to put it together. And that's really the only thing that you absolutely positively need. It is not the only thing I'm going to use because I want to separate these a bit more cleanly. So if you want, you can just twist these off if you want, and they'll come off just fine. But I'm going to use a pair of these snippers. Yep, that's a little bit better. And then I'm going to sand it a bit to get down anything that's left. Okay, then this piece, I have really no idea what that is, but let's get that off. And then these cutters are meant for rails. They're a little bit coarser than my sprue cutters, but I left those in the garage, and I don't feel like going all the way out there to get them. And then finally, oh yeah, this one. So this big tank, you need a little bit of the shaft as well. So actually, that makes me really glad that I've got these cutters. You could also use like a hobby knife, like an X-Acto knife or equivalent, but I like these better for this application, really. Okay, so I don't need the rest of that. All right. Yeah, so there's a reason I did that in that way. So, okay, obviously the first thing I did was I took this body and I set it upside down and I put the weights in there, and they're just going to stay there for now. So next I'm going to take this underframe, and you can see that on this side there are 3 holes, and on this side, well, there's 1 hole, but not the ones that I was pointing to over here. Okay, so that's where the brake rigging goes. So I'm going to take this back out, and I'm going to look in to see where things go. So this little tank goes there. Whoop. All right, this bigger tank looks like that goes in the back here. Yes, this one's a little bit tough. Okay, got that in. It's sticking a little bit far through there. I'm not going to worry. And this is one of those places where if you were worried about parts being secure, like you see this one could move back and forth, a little bit of plastic cement on here would hold those in place forever. And there's no reason not to do that if that's important to you. Getting these done quickly is important to me, so I'm not going to. And this brake piece, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but that goes right here. All right. So that's really the toughest part of the assembly, to be honest, because I could toss that out of the way. The next thing I do is I place this in here. Yeah. So for realism's sake, the brake wheel is on this side, so I probably want to have this brake gear on the same side. I'm sure that there's other examples of these cars that I've built where I didn't even think about that, and I got it backwards. Is that it? I feel like this actually snapped in. Okay, well, I think that's it. The next thing that I'm going to do is put the couplers in. That may seem premature, but you'll see why in a second. So, these coupler covers have one tab that sticks out a little bit further, and we want that pointed to the outside. So what you got to do is take one coupler and you hold it, and then you just snap the brake cover over the top. And I usually like get it hooked on one side and then push it over to the other side. And you want to see that the coupler's moving freely like that. Springs open and closed. Yeah, most of the more expensive ones have, so I'm sure my hands are in all of these shots too. So you might be able to just barely see that there's a little plastic spring. I hesitate to even call it a spring. It looks like a piece of wire, maybe, and that's what pushes it back down. Of course, holding it like this, it's gravity pulling it back down, right? But even like this, the spring pushes it back. In the more expensive coupler designs, that is replaced with an actual metal spring. And that spring, of course, is much more reliable and it'll last for a lot longer, but they also have a tendency to jump out, and they're impossible to find. They're just super tiny. Okay, so now let's get this other coupler in. And I'm doing everything backwards from how I normally do it, so I'm going to flip it over. I feel like I should be zoomed in on this a bit more. You get the idea. If enough people watch this, maybe I'll invest a little bit of money into upgrading my camera setup. How does that sound? Because, yeah, like I said at the start, normally I'm using this setup to read books to children, and books are, you know, bigger than this. All right, so there's the couplers in. We're almost done. I guess you could put the couplers in before you put this in, but this is a little bit less stable and a little bit less accessible, I feel, than after it's installed in place. So that's what I always do. All right, almost there. So we take the truck, we make sure that it's facing the right way, so upside down basically. We put the screw in, like so. Then we get that screw. Oh man, I really got to do something about the lighting too. Hopefully you get the idea though. So yeah, you feed the screw through there, and that screw goes all the way through the underframe and into this hole, that hole right there. And I just messed everything up by taking it apart. Okay, yep, brake rigging is on the right side. And then you just screw it in. And I guess one of the benefits of the flathead screwdriver is everybody has one. Okay, that's good enough. Second one. Okay, and from what I've heard, when you tighten these, you want to have one truck that's loose and wobbly like this one, and then one that's a little bit tighter. I think that I might have over-tightened this screw, so I'm going to see if I could... So I'm going to see if I could get this one down just a little bit tighter. And no, that's as tight as it'll go. Okay. Well, hopefully the weight in here will make up for it, any riding problems. Yep, one more piece. So we got this brake wheel. Possibly the most fragile piece. Maybe the couplers are a close contender though. But you just pop it right in. Don't push it too hard. And try to push it near the center. And if there's one piece on this model that I'm going to use glue for, it will be that. But obviously not right now, because I forgot to grab any, and it seems to be holding in place anyway. Okay. That's not too bad. So I'm going to set this one aside. And now, let's try kitting. Yeah, let's try assembly lining the rest of them. So basically the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare all of these brake sets. So I'm going to put the different parts in piles. And there's only going to be 4 pieces in each pile. And this time I'm not going to do any post-processing of them. I'm not going to be doing any sanding to make them look any better, because you can't really see what's going on in there anyway. And I guess I could talk a little bit more about the cars. So this type of car would have been common in most of the 20th century, really. I think that this specific style came into being somewhere around the 1920s, but they evolved from earlier forms from prior years. And if I show you them running around, which I might add in probably in a separate video, you'll see that I've got a number of other ones of very, very similar designs, but slightly different. Some of them have sides that look like they're welded from several pieces. I've got one that's called a composite. It's got a metal framing, but it has wood sides. Those apparently weren't really popular in real life due to the fact that they weren't as strong. They were made during World War II to conserve material for things that absolutely needed metal, like battleships and tanks and stuff like that. But they were all rebuilt to have metal sides as soon as metal was available again. You won't see too many of these going around these days because they're small. They only haul 50 tons apiece, whereas it's more common to see, 70, 100, or more tons. Our processing facilities are different too. It's actually pretty common for them to use gondola cars for a lot of the things that they used to use hopper cars for, because what they could do with gondola cars, so you saw that there are like little doors down here. Gondola cars don't have that. They've got a flat bottom, but they've got processing machinery that will pick up the whole car, rotate it to dump it, and then put it back on the track. And that's like a really big machine that, in the first half of the 20th century, somebody might have wanted to build one of those, but why would anybody fund it when you could just use these numerous and plentiful hopper cars instead? All right, so let me bring this back up somewhere I could see it and you can't. Not that I don't want you to see it, it's just that I'm kind of out of space. Maybe if I put it right there. Okay, let me do these first. Big one goes in the back. Uh-oh, I might have to sand this down a little bit. Okay, what do you say? Do I do all of the brake stuff on this one? Might as well. I work for a manufacturing company, by the way, so I've got some idea how this assembly stuff goes, but the stuff that my company makes is a lot smaller. They're closer to the size of some of these brake components, really. All right, I already have this piece here, so I'm going to start with that one. That one, and the big one in the back. That's actually, yep, I think what I learned from this one is do the big one in the back first. Two more. Oh, come on. Yeah, like I said, you don't necessarily need any tools except for the flathead screwdriver, but having a little bit of sandpaper or a sanding block like that certainly makes some of these parts a little bit easier. You could also use a file or even an emery board for this, so don't feel like you have to go out and buy a special sanding block. In fact, they may even be better suited for it than what I'm using. Yeah, I think that got a little bit out of shot. Don't need those anymore. Don't worry, I'll pick them up eventually. My house is not a total disaster zone. I could keep it clean. Literally and metaphorically. Alright, that's the underframe detail. I'm going to take a quick 5-second break. My back is not as young as it used to be. Alright, setting those aside. All right, time for the weights, and I could get that out of the way for the moment. I'm only going to need that at the very end. Oh, good, those are all in shot. I'm not paying a lot of attention to what the camera can see. I'm paying attention to what I'm doing, but I'm glad that this is all very well in shot for you. Oh, no, don't tell me. Oh. That's a real shame. Oh, this weight doesn't have a hole in it. Oh man, that's upsetting. Well, I guess I could drill a hole in it, but not today. Okay, the good news is, since these go together and come apart with just 2 flathead screws, oh man, that's a real disappointment. I'm glad that I didn't have a single kit like that. That would have ruined my day. And I was not a very assertive kid, so, well, I'm still not super assertive either. You know, technically the right thing to do would be to go back to the place where you bought them and say, hey, replace this kit for me, or at least replace this part for me. I'm not going to do this to the person who sold this to me on eBay. They had enough trouble already. They actually sent me the wrong set of kits the first time around. I was really tempted. It was a 6-pack of AccuRail hopper cars, which I've only made 1 or 2 of those in the past. I was really tempted to either say, I'll take this instead, or to pay him the additional money to send me both. But in the end, I got this one. Right, so back to the problem at hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. When I put the cars ooh, look at that in the light. When I put the cars all the way together, I'm going to put it inside here as the load. So at least the weight will be inside the car, I guess. Can you, yeah, that's not too bad. Okay. So that's what I'll do then. But for now, I'll just set it aside. I guess I'll try to use a drill to drill out the right size hole for that. Obviously not going to do that on camera, because I don't have anywhere near to a good setup for that. Alright, so let's move on. Let's get these underframes. I've got all the brake wheels facing this way, so I could put all the underframes in the right way. And that's mostly a coincidence. I don't have enough forethought to have put them the right way on purpose. Man, that's really annoying. It's not like they're even saving cost or anything. They're giving me more material, although I guess they're not cast this way, obviously, or else you wouldn't get that kind of defect. That has to be a hole that got drilled out. And then if I look at, like, the edges on these metal pieces aren't super sharp, so they must do actually they are fairly sharp. I don't think they do a ton of post-processing on this metal piece. They probably just stamp it out, or stamped, because they don't make them anymore. If anyone at Athearn is watching this, I would gladly buy brand new kits of this nature, even though I've got more money now and I could buy better models. Something about seeing it come together with your own hands and your own tools. Oh, I've got a little bit of dust on them already. Yeah, something about putting in my own effort really improves the whole thing. So next, let's do the couplers. If I was willing to accept problems anywhere, it would be the couplers, because those are the easiest thing for me to replace. In fact, I don't expect these plastic ones to last all that long based on past experience, which is why I've got a whole bunch of higher quality and higher cost, of course, metal couplers waiting for me in the basement to replace these. Maybe not these ones specifically, but almost definitely. If these aren't very free moving, which this one's fine, one of the things you need to make sure is that you get everything lined up correctly. So you can see that there's like a little hole in the coupler box, in the coupler cover, sorry, and there's a little pin that the coupler goes around. You want to get those lined up pretty close to perfect in order to make sure that things are right. These could also come a little bit unbent. So I find that sometimes, when they're brand new, they're usually fine, but if you've had to take them off and put them back on to replace the couplers, or if they have trouble falling off, you kind of want to bend these sides back in, and then they should hold much better. On the whole, I'm a bit of a fan of that. Having a metal thing clip onto a plastic thing like this might not seem like the most, like, you wouldn't want this to be something that you take off and put on every time you use the trains, obviously, because, oh, what did I do here? Did I bend it in too far or something? I didn't grab a pair of pliers. Right. If any one of these cars is going to end up not having two couplers, it's going to be the same one that doesn't have two weights. There we go. Okay, slide it in. Yep. Another thing that you could do to keep these moving freely, and this isn't something I do that often, but graphite lubricant, which I first heard about in terms of Pinewood Derby cars. Apparently that works really well. The coupler manufacturers usually sell their own formulations of it, but it's the same thing. I don't need any of it today. I think it'd be more useful for the metal couplers anyway. Don't use oil or grease for that though. You will not have a good time. It's kind of late here, and I'm getting a little bit tired. So if my conversation is kind of waning down, that might be the reason why. Oh, am I short a coupler? I think I am. I'm not going to blame that on anyone. It's very possible that I lost one at some point. But, oh no, I found it. There we go. Okay. Oh, I'm actually disappointed in that. I kind of wanted to replace it with one of my metal couplers, which I'm now wishing I would have brought up here so I could show them. But that could be for another day. If I become a famous YouTube model train person, I can make videos about boring things like replacing plastic couplers with metal couplers and all sorts of other things that I myself barely understand. Right, last one. All right. Feeling pretty good about this. Okay, so I did this off screen, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the screw, I'm going to take the truck, I'm going to put the screw through there, and then I'm going to take it, the whole assembly, and put it on. So let me do that again so that you could actually see it. Doop, doop. And then the second to last thing that I'm going to do is come through and tighten all those screws up. Not putting too much care into them because it seems like you can't do anything fancy. You could only tighten them so much before they start to strip out. And even if I'm not super strong, I guess I'm right up against that limit. Possibly because this screwdriver is a little bit thicker than your average hobby or jewelry screwdriver, which means I could get a little bit more torque. And yes, it is knurled. I know one person who may or may not watch this who introduced me to the concept of knurling, and yeah, it's extremely useful to have on tools like that. Don't mind me, I'm just trying to put together rail cars and drink water at the same time. Yeah, and because it's thicker, that means I could grab it better and get a little bit more torque on it. Now, the reason I don't like flathead screwdrivers is, especially from any distance away, it's really hard to get it lined up straight, so you don't end up turning around the same axis as the screw unless you're perfect dead on, and even if you are, it starts to drift like it did there. So that's that. This screwdriver is also a little bit magnetic, which most of the time I really like. I don't assemble and disassemble too many hard drives, so it's not a problem for that. Besides, who uses hard drives anymore? It's a joke. I've got a few of them that I still use. They're still pretty good for. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this one you see can't wobble side to side very much, but it does that, and then this one is more free. I think that the reason for that is so that you get a little bit of side to side, but so that the whole thing doesn't like wobble like this while it's going down the track. And if everything works out just right, there, okay. I'll have to revisit that first one and see if I can't do that better. But that's what we're going to try to do for these four. Well, one of them is going to have to get done again anyway, after I drill out that stupid hole that should have been in the weight. Or maybe I could just take the weight for that one and glue them inside. And then put one of those colloids that I was talking about over the top of it. Then you won't see the weight at all. I think that that's going to leave a little bit of, yeah, that'll leave a little bit of odd-looking empty space at the bottom. But I don't think it's out of the question. You know, what's more odd-looking? This shiny chunk of metal or that empty space that's the right color? Yeah, you don't want to screw it too far down. You do want it to be free to rotate in this direction, just not this one. And I realized after doing that that the fact that it wasn't free to rotate in that direction when I was showing you means it's not exactly a great demonstration. This direction. Okay. One last thing. And I think I will do a little bit of detail work here. So I'm just going to quickly set those aside. I'm going to bring my snippers back over here. There, that's good enough. I'm being really picky now. I just don't want to say that I'm done yet. That one's fine. And no, I don't blame anyone for leaving a little bit of flash on pieces like this. It's, you know, they're small plastic pieces. and you know, some of the details on them are as fine as the flash is. So there's one. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to switch out for a different screwdriver attachment. So I don't have a screwdriver attachment specifically meant for pushing in brake wheels, but I think this one should work nicely. It's a, is it a square or is it a hex? Yeah, I think it's a hex head kind of screwdriver bit that I think is just the right size that it's going to fit on here and spread the pressure a little bit. Because my problem was I would always push it too far and this outer ring would collapse in, and then it looks horribly unrealistic because nothing's going to dent them that badly in real life. If it did, they would just replace the whole brake wheel, which is what I had to end up doing most of the time. Ah, this one. All right, I'm not convinced that the assembly line process was any quicker or better than, you know, just going for them one at a time. But I kind of wanted to try two different methods. Oh, right, we were going to take another look at this. So, flathead. Okay, problem is not getting enough torque. The problem is it spins too easily now. I think that I may have stripped it out. Whoop. Yep, okay. What about the other one? Same thing. Okay, well, I'll just be careful, I guess. There we go. 5 hopper cars. Yep, this guy. 5 hopper cars, 95% complete. All right, so this is where originally I was thinking I would take them downstairs and I would run them and I would maybe record a short video of them going around, but I gotta take a look at this one first. So let me see if I can switch back to the other camera, if my mouse will work. Come on. Okay, it won't. All right, so thanks to anybody who watched that. Get that out of the way. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you saw what I really enjoyed about these. You know, you saw how quick and easy it was. If I was doing it without talking, I would have gotten this done much quicker, I think. But it's done. They look really good, don't they? Considering that this is like a, I think I paid about $10 a piece for these, which is, you know, probably about on par with what I paid for them 15, 20 years ago. So not that bad. Not that bad looking for such a cheap car. And there's a ton of extra stuff that you could do to them if you wanted to make them better. You could file off those grab irons and replace them with separately fitted ones. You could replace these trucks with KD ones. You could replace the couplers with KD couplers. Obvious first thing for me is to paint that weight a more realistic color. Although the super obvious one is to do something with this weight. Man, really disappointed. I think that's the first time I've seen that. Anyway, thank you. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.